Yeah.
Don't need a chair or something?
Yeah, you should. No. FC. She had. Yeah, she did. I'm sorry, waiting.
It's all right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Education and Economic Development meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I would also like you to please note that the meeting is being transmitted via live video stream. The public can find a link to this video stream by visiting Orange County website, www.orangecounty.gov.com, clicking the tab for the legislature, and locating the Education and Economic Development meeting on the calendar. I would ask that everyone please silence your cell phones, tablets, and other electronic devices. I'll also note that the microphones in the statutory committee room are very sensitive and robust. And at this time, I would like everyone to please rise for a moment of silent reflection and followed by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, come.
Here.
Ramos?
Here.
Sassy?
Here.
Viera? Spiaggia?
Here.
Sutherland? Here. And
Here.
President Wexler.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is Maureen Callahan, President and CEO of the Orange County Partnership for a quarterly update. May I have a motion in a second? So moved. Sorry, Darcy, and sorry, who's the second? Sutherland. Welcome, Maureen.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very nice to be here. Hope to see you in a couple weeks at our annual dinner. Hopefully by now you received a invitation. Just RSVP because we're oversold. So please, yeah, let us know. So I put together on your PowerPoint presentation, rather than using the screen today, in the interest of time, I know Joe has another meeting back to back. I put together just a clip of slides that I could just sort of go through with you and tell you some of the new things that we've been working on since the last time we saw you. So the very first slide I threw in there is my deep, feeling of disappointment that moratoriums are still going on. I mean, it is something that I think we're going to be facing, in different towns. I think it's something that we should be aware of. It's a halter of economic development. It really does stop the forward moving progress. I'd like to think that towns will quickly, if they decide to have a moratorium, sort of regroup, figure out where they want their zoning to be, and then let us move forward. Because once the word is out there on the street, site selectors, commercial brokers and the like, people are like, okay, well, not that town or not that town. So Wallkill has always been our golden child. We have quite a few projects in Wallkill right now. The only thing that they're doing is tapping the brakes really on distribution, but we have some big name developers there, with Skinell and Treetop and Trammell Crow and many others. So it's sort of it hasn't 100% been adopted yet, but the public hearing was there. We spoke at it. It looks like it's going in that direction, but we hope that will be quick. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So I want to tell you something exciting that we embarked on this year. It's called our Site Inventory Program. And what we really want to do is sort of reimagine the future with what sites that we have in Orange County that have the infrastructure to support higher end jobs. We all talk about it around this table. We talk about it when we're at public hearings and the like. Look, distribution flies through the door. We have 3 interstate highways. That's why they come, because that's the infrastructure that supports that particular industry. But what we did is we really thought if we really understood what sites support other types of industry, and we had a portfolio of sites that were throughout the county that could support that industry, and we worked together to market those sites and the like, then maybe we have a higher probability of attracting the kind of jobs that are a little bit more desirable. So what we did, we really wanted to do an evaluation on infrastructure. We wanted to meet with all of the municipal leaders, whether the sites are municipally owned or if they are privately owned. We're not only looking at sites that are currently on the market, but all sites. And we actually wanted to identify the sectors, the high-end sectors that we wanted to target, which is advanced manufacturing, food and beverage processing, and life sciences and pharma. So the next slide that you see on your clip there are all the towns that we visited so far. We went to the 3 cities. We went to some of the towns that are pretty progressive. We only kicked this off over the summer, so we're going to continue to go and visit with towns. We wanted to make sure that part of this report card that we're creating is that the municipal leaders and the leaders of the town are interested in this, that they're on board with us. So we're not fighting each other on what we'd like to bring in. So we're having those high-end meetings, we're taking a look at sites. And I gave you an example of one right here, and it's a Port Jervis site, the old Dick's Concrete site. Believe it or not, they have a tremendous amount of power there, a substation nearby. Port Jervis and the town of Deer Park are very much aligned in their political thinking on this type of attracting this type of industry. The site is easy to market. These types of sites don't have to be on a major highway like distribution does. They can be tucked away. You've seen campuses with pharma and the like tucked away in other counties. And then what we're doing now is we're putting together just who we are, the demographics for Orange County, the infrastructure, what we have here. We're putting together a plan to market the sites that would attract this type of industry. Want to have some information on how close we are to major markets, if that's important to them. We have our map there. We have the other markets and how far the distance is. We wanted to market ourselves as a valley because we're not just SUNY Orange and Mount St. Mary College and Toro College. We are the whole valley, so the infrastructure that supports higher ed in the valley, we very much support the type of projects that we're trying to attract. And then we put together a fact sheet, average industrial lease rates. We wanted to talk about the median earnings. And this is just a smattering here for you guys. We have not launched the marketing campaign yet. Hopefully when the DRIs are announced and other things that are out there that might be announced, we might be able to have a very clear picture of, putting Orange County on the map through that. But we wanted to just come up with some of the companies that have landed in the very recent future, very recent couple of years, and also what we have that supports the infrastructure that they need. Our next steps is to turning all that data into a marketing strategy. So workforce, direct connections, targeted marketing. So workforce advocacy. We have a multi-county collaboration. We are working with other counties to see if we could bring something that would be regionally significant. The education link, just like SUNY Orange is working in that cannabis cluster, they're also doing that food tech cluster. We want to get them on board, and any of the SUNY schools that could focus on some of the industries that we'd like to attract. And you all read about Micron, up in Syracuse. This particular project right outside of Syracuse. It took that county executive and the economic development professionals 5 years to get that site ready to land that mega project up there. So they were ready ahead of time. If we're not preparing now, then we're lost. So this is the partnership's way of really moving forward. The partnership has always enjoyed really good relationships with site selectors all over the country. Those are some names of people that we're already reaching out to, making sure that we clearly understand what they have in their portfolio and what we have in ours in terms of sites and infrastructure. And then the partnership, we attend site selectors and ICON and the Innovation Summit and things like that. So we're building relationships all across the international relationships, but definitely domestic relationships with site selectors and commercial brokers that we can make sure that we get the word out what we have here. And then we're going to do an email campaign. There's nothing better than just getting it right in their inbox. And we have eyeball to eyeball relationships with a lot of these companies, so we speak with them. And then the social media outreach and those campaigns and the like. And I'm sure when Bill is up here in a couple of minutes, to talk about his progress with Shovel Ready and the IDA, we work very closely with the same people that the IDA hired. I mean, Sandy Mathis, and I think the first time you met him was probably at the partnership. He does this stuff all over the place, and he's been very, very successful with creating corporate parks in places that you might not think are that desirable, but he's got a lot of genius to that. And so we want to work together with the IDA, maybe with some of the sites that we're identifying and how they're doing, and then with their money. So because they have the affordability to actually move forward with this Shovel Ready project. So that I just wanted you to be up to speed on. And then what I put together here is just to give you an idea of what is out there. Look, you guys all know, who's sniffing around with the big boxes, right? We all talk about it. It's in the newspaper, it's on public hearings and the like. But some of these companies that you see here on the next slide with Frasetto, Matrix, Scannell, Treetop, Brookfield, that's 12 million square feet in the pipeline. Yes, a lot of it is distribution. Those are the big guys. But if you keep looking at the next slide, the 42 active pending projects, and you've heard me say this before, we don't put them on the active list unless they've come here, visited, and walked some dirt. It's not just about inquiries. That number would triple with just inquiries. So, but 24 of them are in manufacturing. So we really do have a big chunk of small to mid-sized manufacturing coming in here. Let's talk about some of the projects. So this foreign energy company manufactures and distributes electric vehicle charging stations. We're going to see more and more of these green energy type projects or related projects. This one came through the state. The state projects don't always close because, these companies like to look through the state and then they send it out to all the counties. But Orange County has some sites that actually made sense. So we submitted them. Project Ocean that you see there, this is the emerging offshore wind industry. What's being built, off of Long Island, in Long Island Sound, 15, 20 nautical miles off of Montauk, thousands and thousands of windmills. Well, all those windmills have to be constructed in different places. The components have to be barged down there. The Port of Albany has an entire mecca now of those projects, and we want to bite at the apple. So we were very, very aggressive to make sure that we were identifying sites that would work for them, and now we actually have had real meetings with real town supervisors on this project. Project Breeze. This is also like a supply chain component parts manufacturer. We partnered with the developer on business attraction. This close collaboration includes meeting prospects on that site. So this is for primary and secondary steel manufacturing, also in that green energy field. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. Project Barney, I won't identify it, but it's the big boys in distribution. I threw that in here because it's just too big not to mention anything, 900,000, a million square feet. It's a big player in Orange County. And then Project Stamper. So we're waiting for word on the next steps, including a potential site visit with this company. They manufacture electric aircraft components, and we want them here in Orange County near one of our airports. Project Seal, they're currently looking for 300 to 500,000 square feet. They want to see a shovel-ready site. This is a very, very well-known high-tech manufacturing company. Unfortunately for us, they want the distribution component here. So we talked to our colleagues in Albany and some of the consultants that they work with, and they said, hey, get your foot in the door. Like, just kind of start to elbow the door open. If they like Orange County, maybe we'll be able to get a bite at the apple of some of the other high-tech stuff that they have. Project Varnish is an international lead. They actually make the stains that go on the floors that you buy at Home Depot or whatever, and you kind of, they're already prefab floors and you kind of put them in. They make those stains and they're looking at some sites here. And then Project Maverick. So this connection came from Albany at that Buffalo conference. They're connected to one of our big name commercial brokers. And this is a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical manufacturing company, probably the biggest name company in Westchester. Again, they're only looking at us for the distribution side of things, but it might be a good way for us to, get in play for some other manufacturing components. Project Ice Cream, I only threw it in here because it's kind of a small guy. It's an international European company that does research and R&D on ice cream products, and they're looking at Orange County. So if you look at that slide there that says, the site selectors are actively engaged with like Project Varnish, Ice Cream, Green Planet, and Stamper, they're all manufacturing leads. So they're kind of high-end manufacturing leads, except maybe the ice cream. Okay, so expansions of what's already here. Project Distill, another food and beverage, distillery that's currently located in the city of Newburgh, is looking to expand. Small, but it's still staying in the county, growing and expanding. Milmar, I don't have to tell you much about Milmar. They've been in front of this legislature and the partnership for many, many years. They did apply for a CFA, kind of have their act together a little bit better right now. They're in Goshen. Hopefully, they'll be able to expand on their site because they do have a lot of jobs here. Choice Films, you hear about it with Amanda. I'm sure you hear about it with Bill. We're lucky to have them, but they're not the only film company that's looking right now. So we have another film-related company that just met with us last week out of California. They'd like to locate here. They like our tax benefits and the like. Trade Trans, they ship product mostly to the Asian markets. They ship Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins all over the world, but they do it out of Chester, and now they're looking to expand 25,000 on their building. The Milk Factory, is an extension of City Winery. It's just so sexy. It's such a beautiful project, and we're really lucky to have them. They're putting a lot of money into that project, another tourism destination. And Project Wheels, not super huge, but they're looking to, to create an expansion for their buses, parking buses, and growing into some buildings that we have here in Orange County. And Superio brand is also a distributor of storage and cleaning supplies. The reason why I put sort of these obscure ones in your pamphlet is because the other things that you read about in the paper, you hear about all the time. I wanted to give you some that you probably don't know that we're working on. This is a smaller to mid-size, but this one is another project that, working with some of our civil tech engineering firms and Orange Bank and Trust. And sometimes we get our leads from engineers and banks. So that's how that one came in. So again, 12 million square feet plus, that includes the manufacturing, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Maureen.
Sure.
Any questions from the committee? Good.
Okay, we'll see you at the barn on the Thursday.
One moment, I had Legislator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the very beginning of your slides, you actually had under municipalities, you talked about workforce housing as a concern countywide. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that and what some industries are doing to kind of address that? Because that has been a recurring theme that has been brought up multiple times and obviously very concerning,
Yeah.
particularly as we face a housing crisis.
So hoping that you guys can address that too, because it's partnership,
Me too.
we're all about industrial, we're all about, manufacturing and the like. But the reason why we complain about it so much is because it's a catastrophic issue. I mean, we just can't get the workforce living locally affordably in our county. Lots of reasons, I'm sure. Some municipalities are fearful, others just don't want housing. I don't know the answer. I can tell you the Galleria Mall is building a whole a big workforce housing component on the Galleria campus. The partnership did stand up in favor of it, got permission from the board to my board of directors to do so. But they're not cheap. You know, the Benoria's just opened the most beautiful place. I mean, who wouldn't want to live there? They're not cheap. So they're stunning. So I'm hearing that the hope is that people my age, empty nesters, might want to sell their family home, the big homes that they raise their kids in, live in something absolutely stunning like that, and that opens up the homes, right, for young people to come in and buy homes. But with the cost of, the interest rates on the mortgages and the like, I don't know where we're gonna go with that. I don't believe that's really something that the partnership can do other than voice of concern.
And so when you're discussing with potential investors and they recognize that that's an issue, is that part of the negotiation process? Hey, we'd really like you to focus on this as well as part of making you successful in the future.
So Amy's Kitchen has shown interest in the possibility of having workforce housing. That's a whole thing though, like is it done appropriately? Would the town want it? There's people that have interest in some of these larger plants that when they're talked to, they say, yeah, we would love to have affordable housing nearby where our workforce lives. I don't know what's even allowed, but yes, but if you're asking me directly, are our prospects asking me about affordable housing? I'm not asking about it. They do ask about workforce, but I'm not specifically asked where they live.
And my last question, when we talk about economic development, I'm sure you're in a lot of meetings throughout the state. Have you seen how other counties have addressed issues around workforce housing? Because one of the things you said is you'd like the county, for example, to kind of help address that. What are you seeing in terms of other counties and how they are working to address that gap, that massive gap around either workforce housing, affordable housing, and so on? I
think it's done better upstate.
Okay.
I do. I think that there are definitely upstate towns that are preparing for, at least when I talk to people on the street, that are preparing to try to hold their youth. Because there's nothing up there. I mean, it'll be a ghost town without their youth. But different counties in downstate, Westchester, Rockland, Orange, struggling.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everybody.
Next up, we have Bill Fioravanti, CEO, Orange County Industrial Development Agency, for a monthly update on the IDA. May I have a motion in a second?
Second.
Zanenga and Riskevich. And please let the record reflect that legislator Ramos is here. Sir, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me here for my monthly update. Legislator Menuda and I spoke earlier about trying to amend this a little bit, one for brevity, and two, to talk a little bit, that section 2 you see here in this report, just this little synopsis of the work we've done. Now, 18 months later, after you did the difficult work of removing the board of directors for the IDA, reinstalling a temporary board, and now we're making all the appointments necessary for a full board. We've done a lot of work to turn this agency around, so I'm going to focus on that a little bit. I'll move pretty quickly. First of all, our schedule, I won't go through everything, but we have our board of directors meeting coming up this Wednesday. As always, those meetings are in the community room right downstairs here in the government center. Thank you to Majority Leader, Chairwoman, Benelli, for stopping by, Legislator Fagione, often coming down and wishing us well and thanking us for our work. And I appreciate that because it's always nice I get paid for this work, but my board does not. So I do appreciate them getting some thanks. It's not a lot it's a thankless job, that's for sure, for the most part. I'll talk more about it a little later, but we have a public hearing from Milmar Foods, as Maureen mentioned. That's coming up on Thursday as well at 4 p.m. Trying to move them a little later in the day to try and appease people so more people can attend. We've gotten that feedback, so that's one of the things we're trying to do. And finance, and then our December board meeting. Now getting into the reform section 2 here. Again, 18 months, I think it was March 30th of last year, where you changed over the board there. I was brought in a couple of days later. Besides doing what we had to do to remove some staff or them willingly leaving, then we had a lot of work to do. We wanted to get new legal counsel, so we have appointed new general counsel, who's our day-to-day attorney, governance, our pilot, straight leasebacks type deals. That's Susan Katzoff, who pretty much you've all met before, out of a firm, Bousquet Holstein, out of Syracuse. She's just been terrific. She is outside the area, but we have some really pure IDA expertise with firms like that. And frankly, I like the fact that neither of these attorneys that we've hired have relationships with our board, with legislatures, the county executive. No offense to anyone, but this way we get pure unadulterated IDA expertise, and it's really worked well. That was Susan was hired via RFP, and we also just appointed new bond counsel, Mr. Chris Canada from the firm Hodgson Russ, a well-respected firm out of the Albany area. Again, those were via RFP and multiple rounds of interviews and such. So new legal counsel has been, I think, one of the kind of foundational type of moves that we made. We also re-procured almost all services that we've had, from attorneys down to cleaning services. That includes a local labor monitor. As you know, we have a local labor policy. So any project we incentivize, 85% of the construction labor needs to be from the local work shed, as we say, which is not just Orange County. We couldn't provide all the workers for all the work we have here, but it's the 7-county region. We are considering adding another county to that, one of the many things that the board is contemplating right now. So we hired 2 local firms for that, Fellinger Engineering and Land, out of Middletown and Goshen respectively. And they're out there going on site, looking at driver's licenses, looking at certified payroll records, making sure that these workers are actually local people. We hired a new finance consultant, essentially kind of a CFO for a hire. We did let go of the CFO that was on staff here for quite a while, and we're actually working with RBT Consultants. That was also through an in-depth RFP. So they are basically our finance consultant, again, CFO for a hire, however you want to look at it, and really helped us uncoil a lot of the processes that were put in place mostly to hide things from the board. So we've obviously reworked all that, implemented our own new policies, and attacking other areas of interest where to make sure everything is airtight in terms of finances at the IADA. We also issued an RFP for a new auditor. We have had the same auditor for quite a while, JGS, many years. They just merged or were acquired by PKF O'Connor Davies, a very large accounting firm. We did not get adequate number of responses to that RFP, so except from PKF. So PKF is going to be doing our 2022 audit, and we're going to reissue that RFP in early 2023 to find another auditor. We've also re-procured, again, basically all service providers. If it wasn't through an RFP, it was with multiple bids, so that the public knows how we chose every vendor that we're working with. We think that's important. We also just hired a new engagement for us, is a new marketing and PR firm for us. Capacity Marketing. They're based out of Middletown. They do a lot of work in Sullivan County as well. It's just become obvious to us. We need to do some actual marketing for attraction marketing, but we need to work on our messaging. There are folks out there that don't understand what we do. Some are even elected officials that understand part of what we do or inflate the truth with some mistruths, I'll say. We need to do a better job of putting our messaging out there, educating the public, educating municipal leaders. You've all seen me doing my road shows, being out there in person, but we just can't touch all the folks that really are our stakeholders. So you're going to see a lot more from us starting in the next couple of months in that regard. So I'm excited about that. We also slashed our first budget, slashed $2.3 million in expenses just by cleaning up some of the funny business and looking very tightly and running much more leanly. So that's also was an important step forward. We also launched just recently the Shovel Ready Site Analysis Initiative. Maureen kind of referred to it. This does dovetail nicely with Orange County Partnerships SIP program, where they're talking to municipal leaders about sites and what they want, what they don't want. Well, we just engaged, again, after an RFP, Delaware Engineering, who most of you are very familiar with, done a lot of work for the county, done a lot of work in the county. This is a project that is very much based upon infrastructure. Maureen's mentioned that a few times, and Delaware knows the infrastructure in this site better than anyone. And they also have a secret weapon in Mr. Sandy Mathis, who I did meet during my time in the partnership. He's an economic developer, a very experienced economic developer. He adds that other element where we will do a full analysis of what are the remaining developable properties around Orange County, ranking them, prioritizing them based upon different assets that they have. When I worked at the partnership, we worked off basically an Excel spreadsheet that was pretty long and pretty robust, and almost all those sites are gone now. This will be an even better list. It will be deeper. We'll have GIS mapping and a lot of data will go around each site. We're most likely going to have that be kind of an intranet site or a web-based product where municipalities, the Orange County Partnership, everyone will be able to access and look at different information about sites. That's one piece to give us that inventory so that we know, since we have dwindling number of sites. But the real intent, our motivation for doing that is some of what Maureen talked to, is trying to bring better projects here, dictating our own future, trying to attract the industry sectors, the companies, and the jobs that we want to bring here. So that will be in a subsequent phase of this initiative where we'll identify top sites that we could bring those types of projects. We'll figure out what can they bring as of now and what with some enhancements could they attract. Maybe extending water and sewer, maybe bringing natural gas, perhaps working with the utility companies to augment power to bring a data center or something that requires that kind of power. That's what we're looking to do. And potentially the IDA board will consider making investments ourselves in these properties, either taking title, however we do it, to extend some of this infrastructure or to bring other assets to the area. Again, it's all like we did with the Warwick Tech Park. That's kind of the inspiration for that. That could have been a blighted site there. We made an investment. We just toured Green Thumb Industries, cannabis manufacturer, 450,000 square foot building. It's going up in record time. It's amazing. Going to be 200 jobs there, high paying jobs, 6-figure jobs. Life sciences, as Maureen talked about, that's what we want here. It's exactly what we want. The idea is investment to bring the lawns basically outside the prison to bring those services to those facilities. We created 10 shovel ready pad sites, and we have major manufacturers that are building there right now. That's what we want to do elsewhere. But again, dictate our future, bring the types of industries and jobs that we want here, higher paying. So working together again with the partnership and our other partners, I'm really excited about that initiative. Also, we had the IDA put out a $500,000 loan fund during COVID for small businesses. That actually was administered through our sister agency, the Orange County Funding Corporation. 23 of those have been paid in full, I'm happy to report. Another, I believe it's 18 are on time with payments scheduled to be paid back in full at the end of this year. But we have been planning to write off about $70,000, what we'll consider bad debt for our audit, that we intend not to be repaid. A couple of companies went out of business. A couple have frankly dodged us, and I've made my calls, this, that, and the other. But we have been managing that, and it ends up, I did contact a number of other regional IDAs and around the state. A lot of them set them up as grants, and they never expected them to be repaid. So I think the fact that we've had so many dutifully repaying, I think is a positive thing, but there is going to be some loss because it was the nature of the environment at that time. And why these were lifelines we were putting out to these small businesses. I think it was, let me think how many it was 10,000, 49 loans. For some reason, it wasn't the full 50, 49 loans of about $10,000 each is what that fund was. And lastly, our board is hard at work reviewing all of our policies. We're going to be making some changes to our bylaws. Some of them are title changes and things like that no longer apply, but also our uniform tax exemption policy. I've talked about that a couple of times, our UTEP. That dictates who gets what types of incentives, what sectors, what types of projects. So we feel the need to update that. It was last done in 2019. We're also going to make some changes to our local labor policy and continue to tighten that up. And our investment policy as well. All we can really invest in are CDs for the most part, low risk investments, treasury bills, things like that. We have started to invest a lot of our fund balance in those because that was not really being put to work as well as it could be. So we've been doing a lot of work there, and we'll probably make some amendments to our policy as well to continue to do the best we can there. Okay, just going to roll through our summary of our project that we have currently right now. And you know how it tends to work. Maureen and the partnership, they do a great job with business attraction, expansion as well, bringing things into the pipeline. And as she often calls the IDA, the closers, to help make sure the deal actually happens. So we are usually on the later end of the cycle here. But I group these into 3 different categories. Approved, meaning the board of directors of the IDA approved incentives for a project, and then we closed it, the legal side, or just like a house closing. We've gone through all the legal piece to actually close it. So we have some that are closed, some that are approved that have not yet closed, and others that are in the pipeline, not yet approved by the board. Approved and closed, I mentioned Green Thumb Industries. You see the stats there, 450,000 square feet, 175 jobs, $155 million project in cannabis manufacturing. I want you to pay attention to the sectors as we talk about them. West Warwick 123, that company is Convergent Energy. That's a battery storage project, actually 3 separate projects in the town, 2 in the town of Warwick, 1 in the village. We did approve those. That construction is underway. Land is out there monitoring local labor on that. Of course, that's renewable energy. Mount St. Mary College, that was the one bond deal we did this year. And again, that's done on the OCFC side of the house. That was basically a reissuance of past tax exempt revenue bonds. They kind of refinance essentially to pay off some other debt. And basically, the bonds are used for capital improvements for higher ed, large nonprofits and such. So that was the first deal that this new board has done on tax exempt bonds. Moving into approved but not yet closed, Sativa, that's the other large cannabis manufacturer out there at the Warwick Tech Park, as we call it now. 128,000 square feet, 100 jobs, $55 million project, again, cannabis manufacturing. They were stalled and they were purchased by an investment bank, Ianthus. They've been restructuring, working on their financials. They did come to the IDA for help getting started, so we did incentivize them. And they will be resuming that project shortly. Royal Wine, 625,000 square feet, 120 jobs. Some of those jobs are moving here, employees moving here, but most of them are new jobs to us. $125 million, food and beverage manufacturing, right in that sector that Maureen said is one of those key industries that we want to continue to retain. And then in the pipeline, currently considering approval for Milmar Foods, also known as Mack Brothers. They're right down, another food and beverage manufacturer on Route 17N. It's basically a food manufacturing corridor for us in the town of Goshen. A lot of folks don't even realize they're there, or at least the size of the operation, but they're going to be adding 40,000 square feet and adding 50 new jobs over the next 3 years. That's almost a $19 million project. Again, food and beverage manufacturing. So right what we want to see happen. And then we just literally a few business days ago, received an application from Skinnell, one of the firms Maureen talked about, a very prominent large-scale industrial developer on a 925,000 square foot building in the town of Wawayanda. They're saying 150 new jobs on their application. We know that to likely be much more than that, but they're being conservative. $122 million project. The sector has not yet been revealed, but it will be by the time it's public with us, because everything with the IDA is completely transparent in that regard. But a great project there. I will say they haven't come to us for a pilot, just requesting sales tax exemption and mortgage recording tax exemption, which seems to be in line with the desires of the town supervisor there as well. So, and last thing I will to Mr. Lujan, talking about workforce housing. This is something that we've been talking a lot about, and I've been doing a lot of research on, talking to other IDAs around the state. This IDA has never incentivized housing that I know of, but many IDAs do, and they're doing more and more of that. And that is something that I've been talking to the board and to our legal counsel about, us considering that really for the crisis that there is in terms of workforce. And workforce is a pretty loose term that can be strictly affordable low-income housing up to higher percentages of area median income. But to be focused on the employees being able to live in this county and work in this county. It's something I'd like to get into. I'd like to see us doing it for the right types of projects, because again, it is a crisis. Not just in terms of living, but it ends up being a barrier to future economic development. As Maureen was talking about, if you can't have the workers in or around the vicinity, it's going to be difficult to bring some of these large employers. So it would be new horizon for us, and we're taking it slowly, but it's something I'll expect that you'll hear me reporting on in the future. So I'll look to talk to you more about it, doing what, where, and how we can do it here.
Very excited to hear about that. Thank you.
Okay, well done.
Well done. Thanks.
All in one
I'm
breath.
moving. That's it, pretty much.
One breath.
Pretty much.
I appreciate that. You know, I will say, from a workforce housing standpoint, throughout history, we've always seen large manufacturers provide their own workforce housing. Those sorts of incentives, that sort of, corporate responsibility should be there. So, having that conversation very candidly and robust, I think is a sure way to ensure that happens, because they need their project, but they also need employees.
If I could respond quickly to that, that's absolutely one of the things we're looking at. Sullivan County is doing something interesting where if you're going to come with a warehouse or a manufacturing center, that they'll give you an extra incentive if you will build some housing within a certain vicinity. I think it's 20 miles, something like that. So that's a model we've been looking at, a way to maybe sweeten the incentives we're offering if they're going to help us solve that problem.
It's been done throughout history. No reason why we can't do it today. Anybody else have any questions? Legislator Paduk.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just, Bill, on your report, approved and closed, why don't you tell us what the incentives were that were approved for each project? Are they all different or there's a basic?
I can go through really quickly, no problem. Green Thumb Industries, so the three-legged stool I talk about, a pilot, which is the big Megilla, the property tax abatement, phasing in their new property taxes. Taxes never going down, we're never writing anyone a check, just phasing in their tax. So a pilot, sales tax exemption is the other one, and mortgage recording tax exemption. Green Thumb was all three. West Warwick was just sales tax exemption. No, ain't a pilot. There was a pilot there as well. Not so much on savings, but to have some predictability of what their taxes would be in a project like this. That's something I've spoken about when I explained our benefits here. Mount St. Mary was the bonds. Moving down to approved but not yet closed. Sativa, that was all three, a pilot, sales tax and mortgage recording tax. Walgreens was just sales tax exemption on high-tech robotic picking equipment, essentially, for their micro fulfillment center. So it was $24 million worth of equipment. So they saved 8.125%. That's the only incentive we gave them. But you can, do the math and you see how sizable that is for them. Royal Wine also, all three, a pilot, sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption. Milmar Foods would be all three as well. I'm trying to remember, it's mortgage reporting tax as well. Yes, all three as well. And they are looking for a mortgage, or I'm sorry, for a pilot. Town supervisor is fully supportive of that, by the way. In Skinnell, they are only looking for, I think I mentioned, a sales tax exemption and mortgage reporting tax, not a pilot. Again, in accordance with the wishes of the supervisor and the town government.
Okay, the pilots are all the same, all 10 years, 5 years, 15?
It's a great question. Pilots all dictated, really predicated by our UTEP, our tax exempt policy. Any distribution projects, by the way, when I mentioned that the former IDA board revised the UTEP, they actually de-incentivized, lessened the emphasis of warehouse distribution. That's actually down to a 6-year pilot. A lot of people don't realize that, from 10, 15 years, that's down to 6 years. Manufacturing was maintained at 15 years. We want manufacturing, sustainable jobs, high-skilled jobs, higher-paying jobs, going to be here longer. We want us to reshore manufacturing to the United States, and we want to be a part of that for sure. So the former board kept that at a 15-year pilot, and that's what Royal Wine got. That's what Milmar is looking at. That's what Amy's Kitchen got. Hotels, by the way, were the other category that were kind of de-emphasized. I think that's down to a 4-year pilot for hotels now with us. Could change.
Thank you. Legislative change.
Yes, relative to the changes to policies, is there a process that includes public engagement for that? Is there like a public hearing that's going to occur?
That's actually not required for our policies, but that is something that I can speak to the board about. Either way, in my conversations with municipal leaders like, yourself, I'd love to be talking to you and legislators about looking for that input. So if there's something specific, but it's not required really for us to do that. I don't believe.
It might be helpful, Chairman, if as these policies move forward, that we might be able to get some presentations relative to where the thinking is and where they're seeing it go.
I appreciate the question, and let's see that in future presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator O'Donnell, we'll leave it to the last question for the day.
Yeah, I'll use most of the 15 minutes. So just on the UTIP, Michael, so the past lawyers over there made it clear to the board that those were just guidelines. This current lawyer that we have over there seems to think that it's written in stone, which is why we ran into the problem with the winery getting a 15-year pilot. They were advised, the board over there, correct me if I'm wrong,
True.
that we had to do this because of UTEP, right? I have a large difference of opinion with that, as did the previous lawyers representing the IDA. That's just a bit of information for all of us.
Appreciate it. What is that position?
That they can do what they want.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, our
To be clear,
attorney is
thank you.
a more conservative interpretation of
That,
those guidelines.
because they have these policy, that they have to stick to that policy.
Understood.
Those are just guidelines.
So you're happy for them to be a little more liberal than what they're offering?
No,
Okay.
right. They don't have to give it 15 years just because it says so.
Fair enough.
They're able to do less, more, whatever. Interesting that you slashed $2.3 million out of your budget this year, because that's about the same number that I think we didn't recover and we're still looking for. Can you give us an update, or is he or she still employed by the IDA? The lawyer that the IDA hired?
So I mentioned our general counsel, Susan Katza, who's Kate Holstein, is one of her partners there that was a litigator. She's not a litigator, who had been counseling us on possible further litigation. He unfortunately left the firm about midway through our work with them. Well, yeah, well, only that it slowed us down in that regard. So that attorney left, and now there's a new attorney who a new litigator we've been working with. We've had our last 2 months of board meetings, we've had executive session in discussion with that attorney.
Good.
It's not yet decided what we'll do. I'm gonna be quite frank, I feel like lawyers are like doctors sometimes, where they're just gonna tell you the worst case scenario. So no offense to the professionals in the room here otherwise, but so sometimes you get, I would say the board isn't just ready just to jump on that because they've heard at full length what the risks are there, what the probability is. So that's what they're considering.
Exactly. Just you don't get the answer you're looking for, you go to the lawyer next door. All right, but as far as I'm concerned, the previous lawyer gave the committee, the majority of the, I think we were the chairman at the time, bad advice in saying not to interview any witnesses. All right. So,
For the legislature not to, right?
So that was committee bad advice that was given to that committee. All right, so I'm glad you have a new person there. What's your balance sheet looking like at the end of the year? How much money you'll have in the bank? You know,
We'll have approximately $12 million in the bank between Orange County Funding Corporation and OCIDA. And we're continuing, again, we've made some investments. We're getting some real revenue now because interest rates are going somewhere. So next year, I think we're projecting well over $150,000 in interest revenue.
all right, and you have a figure on how much you're gonna coordinate with the partnership on shovel ready or loan programs for?
The shovel ready, right now, we're anticipating the first couple of phases, which could mean could include identifying a few select parcels and perhaps even paying to have a generic environmental impact statement done on those to help get them closer to shovel ready. We budgeted a total of about $300,000 for that project.
Yeah, I'm glad
Not
that-
counting investments, pardon me, in any actual investments in infrastructure extension or anything like
Well,
that.
I'm glad you got $12 million, because I was gonna tell you, the county has so much money, you should be asking them to sort of chip in for this program to attract people, which you still may be able to do. Have some conversations with the county exec, right? As far as putting a program together with the county, the partnership and the IDA working together to put some money into economic development out there. I mean, you'll never see the amount of money ever again in Orange County like this. Right? And last, Chairman, so I won't take till 5 o'clock. Can you give all of us here a list of the 49 companies? The $10,000 loan program, those that paid, those that partially paid, those that didn't pay. So,
Not right now, of course, right? I'll
Of
follow up with you
course,
on
of
that?
course,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't have that committed to memory. I'm working on it.
As a follow-up, thank you.
Absolutely.
all right, I just want to know what companies not to spend my money at that didn't pay us back, you know? Not that I'm like
Let's not
that.
go there. Legislator Gresham.
Yeah, Bill, just a quick question on Walgreens town of Newburgh, did they get a 485B or did they apply for one?
So they did not, they actually, yes, the developer did, Matrix, they went for a 45B, because the town supervisor, who was, frankly, really hoping for a mall there, it's something we worked on together for quite a while, COVID really killed that. He had said, that he didn't want them to have a pilot, so they got a 45B as of right, it's basically half a pilot they went to, they just came to us for sales tax exemption.
Okay. And the local labor policy, I know I was involved with the first one that we adopted years ago, as was Maureen, and the revision to that, but I thought it was pretty good, labor policy, so what would you be looking at?
It is, that's a great question. Really, the challenge is you tightened it up from being 85% of the whole project to 85%, right, to 85% of every single subcontract, so everything, whether it's carpeting and excavation, and it just, there are some challenges with trying to make that work. It's every single one we've had some challenges, so I know.
Well, there were exemptions in there.
There are, for
For
sure,
certain things that local contractors don't do.
absolutely. that too, we're trying to make sure we tighten up that process, because, a lot of people question that, some people think that not just our IDAs, but others rubber stamp those exemptions, the waivers. So that's something that we're going through that for the first time.
20% differential still in there.
It is,
Because if you get much higher than that, you're gonna start to show this
Exactly.
out of the count.
exactly.
Okay, all right.
So really
that's
not
good.
major changes, honestly, sir, but just tightening it up where we can in consultation with our labor monitoring companies as well. And talking to other IDAs, talking to New York State EDC, which is kind of our trade association. So we're always trying to find out who's doing what and adopt the best practices essentially. Sure.
Excellent. That's all. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate
you all.
coming in.
Sure.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thanks, everybody.
Business being cleared, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second. Thank you all very much.